Hi there and welcome to Magic. Now this video assumes you have MySQL installed, but you can also use Microsoft SQL Server. It assumes you have .NET Core 3.1 installed. It assumes you have some sort of IDE. You can use Visual Studio on Windows or Visual Studio Code on Mac and Linux, which I'm going to be using. It assumes you have a fairly new version of Node and Angular installed. With that in mind, let's get started. Open up Google Chrome and then go to this URL, which you can find in the description of this YouTube video for the record. Then go down here, click Releases and download the latest source code zip version. Then just drag it onto your desktop, for instance. And I had another older version, so let's rename it and unzip it. Now we can delete the zip file. Then I'm going to open a terminal window because I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, as I said previously. Then I'm going to go to the folder of where I unzip Magic. Then I'm going to start Visual Studio Code. You can also double click on the solution file inside of that folder if you are using Windows. Let me show you how it looks like inside of this. Here you can see there's a solution file. Then when you are done, you're going to need two terminal windows. If you don't have one already, you can click here and click New Terminal. I already have one here, so I'm going to type into this terminal window cd backend. From here I'm going to type .NET run. This compiles and runs my .NET Core 3.x version backend. While this thing is working, I'm going to open another terminal window by clicking the plus here, going to the CD frontend folder. Then I'm going to type npm link, and this is going to take some time, but please let it finish with what it's doing. When npm link is done, you can type ng space serve. That's also going to take a ridiculous amount of time, unfortunately, and Google, in case somebody from the Angular project are listening into this, we seriously need to optimize the initial compilation of Angular projects. Why? Because we tend to integrate them on our pipelines in Azure and AEW, Amazon Web Services, etc. So you really need to optimize this. Then when ng-serve is done doing its thing, you can open your browser of choice. I need to start mine. I'm using Chrome, and you can open the URL localhost 4200. Localhost : 4200, at which point you're asked for a username and a password. The default username and password the first time you start Magic is root/root. When you're logged in, you're going to be asked for providing a JWT secret. It's being randomly generated for you, so you don't need to fiddle with it anymore. Then you're going to have to choose a database type. And of course, at this point, you're going to need either a MySQL instance or a Microsoft SQL Server. Regardless of which database type you choose, you must keep this thing here, database, exactly as it is. Why? Because it's a generic connection string used to connect to multiple databases. I'm going to be using MySQL because that happens to be the database I have locally installed. And if you have locally installed MySQL or MS SQL Server on your or MySQL Server on your development machine, probably the only thing you're going to need to change is the password, which for this particular instance by default happens to be this is not a good password. Obviously don't use that. Then you're going to have to choose a password for your root account. The root account is basically the equivalent of the root account on a Linux system, and it has full control over everything. So this password should be very difficult to guess. I'm going to choose admin. Don't do that. And then click save. And then after a couple of seconds, the system is going to be set up and everything is ready to roll. Now at this point, if you don't happen to have a database in your MySQL instance, you can actually go here to your SQL menu item, and you can choose from selected files. You can choose samples. You can well, I guess there aren't really that many good examples for for MySQL. But anyways, you can probably find a MySQL database schema creation script online somewhere. But there is one fairly good for Microsoft SQL Server under MS SQL Batch, by the way. I have a database here called AnarQ, and I have one called Magic, which was automatically generated for me during the setup process. The first thing I'm going to have to do is to choose the Crudify menu, then I'm going to have to choose Magic, then I'm going to have to choose All Table, and then click Crudify All, at which point I have a complete authorization and authentication system backend, covering all of these tables. Let me show them to you. Users, user roles, which is a many-to-many link between users and roles, and then you have a roles table. And already at this point I can actually go to my users menu item and I can start creating new users if I want to. Foo, don't choose foo as password, and then I can assign roles to that particular user according to what roles I have in my system. Then you can go back to Crudify. You can choose your database of type. I'm going to be choosing AnarQ here. Then I'm going to choose all tables. Then I'm going to click Crudify all. And now I have 63 HTTP REST endpoints with a total line of 330 lines of Hyperlambda code. And I can already go to my endpoints and play around with them. If I click Show Endpoints here inside of the Endpoints menu item, I will see every single endpoint I have. If I, for instance, take a look at languages, the gets type of REST endpoint, I can invoke that and I get back Norwegian and English. I can update, delete, create new items, etc. I basically have a complete HTTP REST CRUD backend for every single table in my system, in addition to account endpoint. Let's drop that for now. Let's create a name for our app. Let's choose a template, Angular default. And give it a file comment header, click generate, and boom, we have a complete Angular front end, which we can unzip. Then we can open a new terminal window. We can go to our downloads folder. Whoops. We can open up the folder where we unzipped our thing. Here you can see it is. We can open up another instance of Visual Studio Code. And then we can open up another terminal window. And we can type npm link. And here is the entire code that was automatically generated for you for this particular database. It's probably somewhere around, I don't know, 20,000 lines of TypeScript, HTML, etc., etc. And you can easily browse through the code and have a look at it as you wish. Here you can see the front end for the cases.component.html file. Here you can see the TypeScript code for that same particular file. Let npm link finish whatever it's doing. It will take some time, unfortunately. When npm link is done, we can serve our application. However, at this point, we're going to have to supply a -- port argument. And I'm going to type in 4201 here. The reasons why is because our 4200 port is already busy serving the Magic dashboard front end. And this too is going to take some time. And when ng-serve is finished doing its thing, you can open up another browser window, and this time you're going to go to localhost colon 4201. And as you do, you will notice that you're being asked to log in with your username and password. This is the same username and password database that Magic created initially for you. So in fact, not only have Magic created an entire backend and frontend wrapping every single database table you have, it has also secured access to your table with an authentication and authorization system that's fully integrated into Magic. If you now go to the languages table here, for instance, just Google Chrome warning me that my password is not secure, you can see that we can edit existing items. Norsk, blah, blah, save it. That's actually updating the item in the database. I can create new items, ES, Spanish, okay, save. Now I have a new language. I can do the same with every single database table I have, translations, etc., etc., etc. And in addition, the system has also given me an auth menu item from where I can, if I am a root user, manage my users database and grant access to specific modules according to roles to specific users. I can delete users, etc., and continue as I please in those regards. And not only that, but actually also, if I can find something that kind of exemplifies that, so if I go to cases here now, if I try to create a new case, then you will see that if I click the deadline here, then it actually pops up a datetime picker for me automatically, which is actually because of that this particular database column happens to be of type datetime. And as you can see, it does the same with other types, such as, for instance, let's see if we can find some integers here. Not entirely sure if I actually have this in this database. I don't really, so users extra type. No, I don't have it. But here you can see mandatory, which of course becomes a checkbox because it's a Boolean field, etc., etc. And I want to emphasize that Magic actually automatically created this entirely for me. I didn't write one single line of code. And this system is probably some 15 to 20,000 lines of front-end Angular code, in addition to some 500 lines of back-end .NET code, wrapping my entire database in a secure fashion. And according to research in this topic, the average software developer can produce roughly 750 lines of code per month, implying that this is 5 developers working for a year to be able to actually reproduce what I did in 1 second by clicking 2 buttons. And that is Magic. Yet again, there's a link in the description of this YouTube video to where you can download Magic. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.